So Jill, what inspired you to go into this field?
Movement is key in my life. If I cannot exercise or if I cannot sport, I really am not happy.
You spend a lot of time on the track. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Do you do a professional sport?
Eventually, from the heptathlon, I graduated onto becoming a discus thrower, and I even became a national champion, which I'm actually pretty proud of.
Out of the countries you've visited, what are your favorites? Welcome to Pulsar Talks, where we have short little talks with researchers around the world. I'm Chase, and this is my co-host Ashkan. Ashkan, would you like to introduce our guest today?
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Pulsar Talks. Today we are with Jill Emmerzaal. She's with us today from Belgium. She has a bachelor's degree in physiotherapy and a master's degree in human movement sciences. Then she started her PhD at KU Leuven and Hasselt University, working on osteoarthritis. And right now she's a PhD candidate. Welcome, Jill. I'm gonna go with a warm-up question first. What was the city that you were born in the Netherlands, and what do you love the most about that city?
I was born in Nijmegen. It's a city that's on a big river. And what I like most about the city is, well, the track there. I spend most of my time on the track.
So perhaps this is related a little bit to your background, which we're going to talk about later.
So Jill, we hear that you're a PhD student right now. Can you tell us about your research field?
I work in a very big interdisciplinary research group with whom we are trying to create an app or develop an app and a blended care program for people with osteoarthritis. And what we are trying to do is get complex measures, just like joint loading, outside of a laboratory and into the clinic. And that basically is our main goal. And we want to do this because we know that joint loading and the loading on the musculoskeletal system matters for people with osteoarthritis. But currently we cannot use it in a clinical setting because it is very difficult to measure. So with the app that we are creating, we're trying to integrate it a little bit more into the clinic and to see if we can actually use it to guide the rehabilitation for people with osteoarthritis.
So Jill, what inspired you to go into this field?
As I said before, I spend most of my time on the track, and movement is key in my life. If I cannot exercise or if I cannot sport, I really am not happy. And people with osteoarthritis have a lot of difficulties with exercising, with movement, even though they are encouraged to do so. So I really wanted to find out what happens and how we can make sure that people keep on moving, because it's such an integral part of who I am and what I find important in life and what I enjoy most.
And Jill, you say that you spend a lot of time on the track. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Do you do a professional sport?
A professional, no. Sometimes I wish I did. No. I started track and field when I was 6, and I combined that with gymnastics. So it was very basic motor learning that I did from a very young age. Stopped gymnastics when I was 13, kept doing track and field. And eventually from the heptathlon, I graduated onto becoming a discus thrower, and I even became a national champion, which I'm actually pretty proud of.
Wow, yes.
But I made the conscious choice to go for studies and to go for an academic career compared to trying to go professional. Sometimes I really wish I made a different choice. But that's completely different.
So would you like to go into industry when you graduate, or stay in academia, or maybe professional sports?
Well, all three are still on the table. So hopefully I'll graduate in November this year. I have written a scholarship for a postdoc grant at the University of Leuven. So hopefully I can stay and finish some of the work that I'm still doing. On the other hand, my wife has encouraged me to really think about what I want to do with my life. and if academia really is the thing that I want to do, or indeed, as you say, maybe finally see how far I can really throw. But I still haven't made a decision yet. Also see from if I get the scholarship, if I don't get the scholarship, and then I'll re-evaluate. But I don't necessarily have any intentions of going into industry.
So Jill, what is something in your research field that you find really fascinating or exciting, or that has really good applications for the world?
As I mentioned, I'm in a big consortium, amongst others, with computer science. So I've also been working close with the person who does the machine learning for our applications. And I think one of the most promising, or one of a promising thing at least, is using machine learning in biomechanics. I think over the years, a lot of data has been collected. And I think if we pull all that data, then we can have such a big data, then we really have big data. And if we use big data and apply machine learning on that big data, we might get into new insights that can help us learn better, or make the transition from the lab to the real world. Because I think that is where we are sort of stuck at this moment, that we do not have enough data to really calculate joint loading in a real life setting. But if we would use the big data that has already been collected, or collected in other universities, other countries around the world, then I think we can really gain more insight into what makes us tick. But I think pooling that data will be a PhD in itself, so I'm not going to do that in the whole month of my work. So I'm just going to stick with what I do now.
And so you talked about your own experience in sports, and also you talked about your experience in research. Based on these two, what is your advice, perhaps, to people who are training for a certain sport, or people who are exercising seriously?
Lots of rest. Don't spread yourself too thin in different subjects, but also I think we need more insight into what's really happening when people are training, and many of the federal trainers are using their own experiences, but are not really using science in that sense. So science comes in when there might be a problem with an athlete, but not in the stages before. And I think if we look at prevention, then it might be better to also look at the stages before than once an athlete has been injured. And I think especially with the rise of wearable technology, that is possible. The only thing that we now need to do, and that's a tiny thing, is to get the data that we have, or the research that we have, from a laboratory setting, and here I go again, and transfer it out into the real world, but also make it understandable for coaches. There are some processes going on in getting science into sports and sports rehabilitation, but I think also we need to start before an athlete gets injured.
So we're coming to the end of our talk, and before we go, we'll ask a quick personal question. So Jill, out of the countries you've visited, what are your favorites?
I can name 3. It's the country where my mother is from, Curacao, which is very close to Venezuela. It's in the Dutch Caribbean, so she was born there, and we visited there when I was a child quite a lot, and especially when my grandfather was still alive, we would go there and we would stay there, and those were really the best vacations that I had. Country itself, it's nice. It's not really beautiful. It's very dry. It's very warm. But it's nice because it's also a second piece of home. I've also had the privilege to go to South Africa for competitions there, so that was really, really nice. And also we went with a group of athletes, and that also allowed us to really visit the country, also a very tiny part of the country because it's big. But what I've seen so far, I would really like to go back. And in 2019, before the entire pandemic started, I went to one of the Hawaiian Islands. So that was really, really nice. It was a honeymoon before we were married. So it was It was quite a really nice experience. Beautiful country, beautiful nature, nice people. So yeah, I think those are my top 3 countries that I've been in. But there's so much to see still. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jill, for your time and all your insights. Research sports, other countries. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It's been really nice and very painless. So it was.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, Jill, thank you for being here. It's been great.
Well, follow us on social media. Until the next episode, bye.
Bye.